They say there's two sides to every story, and that's definitely true of Alien Rogue Incursion on the Meta Quest 3 and Meta Quest 3S. For clarity, I have already reviewed Alien Rogue Incursion on PSVR 2 and PCVR last December, so I won't be pretending I've never played it before, but I'll quickly go over the details of what exactly this game is, because some things have changed from the first time I've played it. It's an action first-person shooter with some horror elements and some light puzzles. You take control of a colonial marine called Zulu Hendrix. After crash landing on a planet called Perdan, you must explore a Gemini Exoplanet Solutions black site facility with your AI buddy Davis, and you must fight through an infestation of xenomorphs to seek out the truth of a new company conspiracy. There's some nice plot twists, and there's one moment every fan of Aliens will never forget, and after going through that moment again on Quest, it's still the best face-screwing in disgust moment in all of my 7 years in VR history. And oh yeah, in case you missed the drama last time, this is now called Alien Rogue Incursion Part 1. Survios have now officially changed the name of the game due to being called out for their original move of not telling anyone that there was a Part 2, which was just either someone's weird sense of humour or a bad marketing choice that backfired. The game is set in the same environment as every other Alien game. It's cold, dark, with an industrial's 80s sci-fi vibe, with pipes leaking steam and grates everywhere, giving these xenomorphs plenty of options to get to you in the dark. Unfortunately, on the Quest, this is ruined because the first half of the game actually isn't dark at all. You have a flashlight attached to the left side of your head, but for the first 4 to 5 hours, you'll never need to turn it on, because the game simply isn't dark enough. Then as I entered a different part of the station, much later in the story, I was suddenly met with a dark enough scene that finally warranted using the flashlight, which obviously confused me because I wondered why the rest of the game wasn't like this. And it's then I realised how much these blacks added to the atmosphere and how the developers really need to get this sorted out quick. Alien Rogue Incursion has some exploration involved, but hardly any open areas. Everything is contained to this one site and has around 4 to 5 floors for you to explore, which you'll access via lifts and ducts. You'll be searching containers, boxes, and using your blowtorch to get into locked lockers, and using terminals to access and operate security measures such as doors and more lockers. There's also emails at all of these terminals, and they definitely do add to the story if you want to take time to read them, but I personally skip them and simply go for the floppy disks that you'll find throughout the game. These floppy disks also act as collectibles in the game, and you need to collect them in sets, and I believe there's 4 or 5 sets, and if you complete a set, you'll get access to special areas. Back on my review build on the PSVR 2, my map glitched out, causing me lots of problems, and I had to do a lot of backtracking. But this reminded me, throughout my entire playtime on Quest, I didn't come across any bugs or game-breaking glitches. So maybe this is a newer build and contains some of the fixes that are now released on the other 2 platforms. And this nicely leads me to another issue that appears to be fixed regarding the xenomorph encounters. Last time they felt very unnatural and almost worked on a timer, which ruined a lot of the anxiety. But on Quest, I didn't experience this. They still obviously appear when they need to during scripted moments and key events, but in general my encounters were much more natural and obviously therefore unknown, and this upped the tension of the game massively, with some even lurking behind some closed doors. The aliens still look quite detailed on Quest, but they don't look as impactful until they get up close, because they kind of look greyed out and not black and shiny. I still panic though every time one entered the room and run at me. The Quest port adds some very long loading time transitions from area to area. Now don't get me wrong, I really appreciate never seeing a loading screen once you actually start playing, but some of these transitions were incredibly long and they did get boring. There was also times during big moments where the music is frantically playing and nothing was happening. Then suddenly more aliens would appear or the mission was done. And this brings me nicely back to my first comment when the video started, and that's about this game being a story of 2 halves. On one hand, you have an almost exact replica of the PCVR and PSVR 2 version on mobile hardware, which in itself is impressive. Everything is here, and when it comes to the gameplay, the more I played, the more I felt like I was having the exact same experience as the first time, and I believe that's mainly down to the in-game physics. Some players find this game clunky, but I personally like being able to pick up boxes that don't glitch out. I like my guns feeling heavy and solid to the touch, and I especially like having a full body with arms and elbows that feel good. It's also got a decent length campaign of around 8 hours for your first ever playthrough on the default story difficulty. And before I move on too quick, the guns are especially satisfying, especially the shotgun. However, there is a price to be paid for bringing a game like this to the Quest, and I personally think it's quite heavy. And that price, ladies and gentlemen, is performance, resolution, and broken textures. Upon starting the game, alarm bells started to ring because I was greeted with a shadow that looked like a broken eggshell around my head. It was clearly something to do with object collision, but no matter what I did and how I adjusted myself, it just simply wouldn't go away. So I dived into the settings and discovered it's because I chose to play seated. Now, as a playtester, this made me immediately nervous. Stuff like this should never slip through to a consumer. If you select either standing or swivel chair, this is a new one on me, it will get rid of this issue completely. I figured I'd mention it in case it's still there when the game gets publicly released tomorrow. And I would actually tell Survios about this issue, but to be honest, they seem quite snobbish now and just don't communicate with me at all. And if you do want to buy this game regardless of the review outcome, I'll pin a Meta affiliate code to this video's comments and that will save you 10%. When the game eventually lets you stand up after crash landing, I was hit again with another slap around the face, and this time from asynchronous space warp. Not since playing Hubris on Quest have I seen such a heavy use of this awful effect, and this is compounded by the use of dynamic resolution. To be fair, the lowering of the resolution isn't always an issue, but when the two work together, it leads to some unpredictable screen tears, drops in frames, and overall the image can look incredibly wobbly. I tried to use Quest Optimizer to improve this as much as possible, and you can push the frame rate to a semi-solid 90 FPS, which is much nicer, but the trade-off is you have to drop the resolution yourself and then increase foveated rendering to maximum. If you don't know what Quest Optimizer is, I'll leave a video on this video's description so you can check it out, but in all honesty, I would simply wait for the developer to put some extra time into increasing the game's performance. There's also some geometry issues which show a lack of care, and to prove that there is a lack of care, there is one place every player who plays this game will definitely spend some time in, and that's the elevator. And you have to face these twisted random assets every single time, and this only increases the awareness of many other examples of poor geometry throughout the game. Now, I know it seems like we're on a downhill slope, but please bear with me. The draw distance is also severely impacted on the outside parts of the game, but I think the developers have done their best to keep the outline of the facility on the skyline, along with some nice lightning effects. This version is also missing something I absolutely love doing on the PSVR 2 and PC, and that's wiping blood off screens. And before I get to my summary, there is one other thing that I noticed, and that was my full battery on my Quest went down to just 9% in 1 hour. Now, to be clear, I was recording, but I've never seen a game drain the Quest battery quite like this one. So with all that info out the way, it's time to summarise. Even with all these issues I've mentioned, random drops in performance, missing blacks and the such, the atmosphere is still good, and I personally find this game very compelling to play. I happily completed it all over again, and not just because I was doing a review. I think it's an excellent game. There's never a dull moment for me outside of the in-game loading, and it's actually one of my favourites to play right now on Quest. Everything has that square clunky look from the 80s, computers sound old, and the place is littered with flashing buttons and lights that do absolutely nothing but look cool. The aliens are much more of a threat now because they are unpredictable. The weapons feel fantastic, and overall I still had a really good time. It's just a shame to get a game like this running on the Quest. The trade-offs have been pretty heavy. I would imagine if this game was made from Quest right from the start, it would be twice as good as it is now, but overall I would still give it a buy recommendation. I even want to start it again, but on the harder difficulty, but this time focusing on getting all the floppy disks I mentioned earlier. It's a decent game let down by a poor port, which I'm certain will improve in time. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I hope this video helps you make a decision, and if so, please leave a like, subscribe for more VR content, and I'll see you all on the next one.